So I'm going to do another locomotive. It's a GP35 C&O. First thing I do is I usually just rip out the guts on here. I was just looking at this and I found it interesting that Soundtraxx makes this board. But if you were to go with the sound unit, it would, I'm pretty sure, because this is a Walthers Proto, and the details really awesome on this thing. I mean, there's not a whole lot graphic wise, but what there is, it's very crisp and clean, very well done. I grew up around C&O and Chessie, so I thought I would get one of these. So I removed this first. To me, it just takes up room. Other people, they don't, you can unplug this and it's just got a little dummy board on it. Plug in a decoder. I'm going with the Soundtraxx Tsunami 2. So again, I want all the space I can get because I'm going to put the decoder in. It won't be the board type. It'll be the one that has the purple shrink wrap type stuff around it. So I disconnect everything. Of course, when it's put back together, I like to solder all my stuff too. I don't like these little press-ons. I know they do it because it's quick. I do like how they have these little boards. So the number boards and the headlight is separate. And on the back here, you've got your reverse light, and then up underneath, can't see it, but well, that's because it's in here, and I can't really point to it. But up underneath here, that's this yellow and blue wire's LED that is going down to light up these number boards, that clear section there. And you want to be careful when you take your wires loose. I found on the nose, it's got this it's kind of a gummy adhesive, and it just kind of presses down in here. And then this portion was up here. Okay, so anyway, the next step I would do is there's 2 screws, and then this little plate, it's kind of slipped down. It comes off, so just put that aside. Okay, here's where there's a pretty serious issue in my opinion. This is where your speaker's going to go, okay? And you've got where your wires come down and all. The edge of the speaker is going to rest along here. I usually just put a couple of very small tacks of CA so it can be easily removed. But then I'll go back and I'll brush Elmer's glue around the whole rim of the speaker to keep it as airtight, even though it's not really airtight. But you cannot have a speaker that close to that metal like that and expect it to perform very well. If you don't know much about enclosures and sound, and you get one of these with sound, it's going to be pretty tinny. You're not going to have much mid or any bass whatsoever. The speaker needs room to push air. It pushes airwaves, and those airwaves go to your ears. When you don't provide enough, it's kind of springy. It's not like hydraulic fluid. I mean, that stuff, when you push a ram on one side, the other end is going to move the same, it displaces the same amount. When you're talking about air, it's a bit springy, so um, you your enclosure allows the speaker to move, but you have to have some airspace. I mean, the other way to do it is what they call an infinite baffle. You could have, let's just say, speakers mounted in the back deck of a car. So the trunk and everything back there acts as a baffle, or infinite baffle is what they call it. There's no real enclosure. Um, and then with many other speakers, especially like subs, you have to have an enclosure, or else the cone can just kind of fly all over the place. Uh, Even in an infinite baffle, if you don't have something sealing around, and I like to do this experiment I've shown people, I'll solder a speaker onto the two leads on the Soundtraxx decoder, and then go ahead and fire it up, and then just dangle the speaker and play it. And I say, you can hear that, right? It's real tinny. I always do it just to kind of, I always do it just as a decoder test. But then I'll put my fingers around the speaker like an OK, and then bring my fingers kind of around where I'm mostly enclosing that speaker. I challenge you to try it, because it's like day and night. And I'm telling you, the way this is not much different than not having an enclosure at all. Because once that speaker's in there, there's no room for air to move. So I've done this once before. I marked the center of the speaker, and I believe I drilled in steps up to about a 1/2 inch hole. So I'll do that, and the next thing I would want to do is these little standoffs that the board mounts to. And again, they do it because it's fast and easy, and it keeps anything with electricity going through it from shorting out. But I don't have to worry about that, the direction I'm going. So I'm going to go ahead and just mill off these. I've got a little mill. I'll either grind, or this is pretty close to something, so I'm not sure if I can grind that off too easy. I'll mill those off, and then that way I'll have a nice flat base. It's easy to take this off the frame. It was just, there's a screw in the front and a screw in the rear. The body comes off just by taking out the coupler pockets, like most. And then, so yeah, right about there on the bottom, there's a bell. Just to the left of that, you've got a short screw. And then right up above that, here, you've got a slightly longer screw. And that's how you take off the body. So that'll be the first step. It'll be a couple days till the decoder. I always get the speaker, in this case a 1-inch. It's a Soundtraxx 1-inch round speaker. Their cubes are awesome. At first, when I saw this area, I was thinking I might have to mill that down and use cubes, and then I saw that side popped off. And I've done one of these before, and then it all kind of came back to me. So the 1-inch speaker, I've already looked, and the decoder takes up about this much room. I believe it's the TSU 2200. It's a 2-amp decoder, EMD, and then I always use the current keeper, and then there's not going to be much room, but from about here back, it's not as wide. The decoder will be about as wide as the metal, but the current keeper is not as wide. It's just kind of long. They make a current keeper 2, but it is too big for this application. But I have used it in a caboose and it worked perfect. So it depends. So once I have all these nice and flush, I'll have all the room I need and the hole drilled in that part. So when the parts come in, I'll pick it up from there. It should be pretty straightforward. I do put the number boards on a function, and I'll have to look at the board again. I can't remember what wires what, but I'm pretty sure one of them is going to be common coming off of here, and then they did a really good job on their lights. Usually, that's the first thing I do is just rip the lights out because I'm disgusted by how dim lights are on most locomotives, but even these little tiny guys, they do a really good job. So I'll have to look and see how that board's done, so I'll know which wires to pick up for my front light and number boards. But of course, the first thing you do is throw it on a DC track and test everything before you go ripping it apart. Should go without saying, and it looks great. Okay, so I went ahead and milled those down like I said it would. That way the whole deck there is flat. And I went in here and drilled that out. It's about a 1/2 inch. It probably really doesn't need to be quite that large, but like I said, it can't be solid. It's just going to lock up the speaker travel. You got to have air that can move. You could probably get away with I don't know, 1/4 inch, 3/8. And I just took it up to about, this has a little stair step. And I took it up to about the size of it. So when the speaker comes in, it'll be ready to go. I can just lay out the components, go from there. But I'm sure I've got plenty of room up there. I like how they've set that up, so it's easy to work with. They're older ones before they're Walthers. If you got a non-sound unit, it came with a whole different weight in it, and it made it a lot harder to put sound in. You had to do a lot of milling, and sound unit came with a weight with a spot for the speaker, and well, it came with a speaker, so if you want to upgrade, that was easy. But in the past, if you got a non-sound unit and want to put sound in, it was just solid weight. So I like how they do this now. So I got the speaker in. I've got both the decoder and current keeper on. Getting ready to tape down the wires so they're not sticking up all over the place. So I think I showed before, have the whole airflow can come through there. Speaker's mounted. I pushed it just slightly forward. Now on the back side of where the speaker terminals are, I did put a piece of tape over the entire area that has the connectors. Even though it's painted, I don't want to take any chance of those grounding out on the frame. Alright, so I got the rest of the wires buttoned up. I like to put electrical tape over the center portion. I haven't tried to put the shell on yet, but if I feel just a little bit of resistance on there, that's a good thing, because if there's going to be any vibration, it's usually the first thing I check is the shell. And I may have to put a small strip back here, but I won't know until I go to run it. I usually set up the equalizer to bump the bass up just a little bit. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of bass from a small speaker, but when I did test it last night when I first put it in, it was extremely loud. So volume's not going to be an issue here. For some reason, their color coding is backwards on this. So I assumed and wired this with the blue being the hot, and it wasn't. It was the negative on both. So one pair of wires is for the headlight, the other pair of wires is for the number boards. So I'm going to go ahead and fit the shell. At a later point, I will put step lights and truck lights on it. So it's buried down in there, but I've got a little lead here ready for, it doesn't matter. But all the power is soldered together, and I have one leg that I put shrink tube on, just so when I am ready to tie in those circuits, I can do so. Got 3 more outputs on this. The number boards are on function 26. I'll put the truck lights on 24, and the step lights on 25. So I finished this up almost a week ago, actually. But I found out on this in another video I recently did that my microphone was jacking up pretty bad. As soon as I fire up the locomotive, it would kind of mute. Not sure what that's about. Anyway, I gotta finish this video on my wife's phone. So I'm kind of a Chessie B&O C&O fan. I was hoping to find a B&O in good condition. I can find them all day with a bunch of parts missing. But anyway, I just had them kind of sitting here. So let's see if this records any better. Because it's weird, the other sections of the video where I'm just talking, there's no issue. But when the locomotive starts up, for some reason it would try to just mute out. I don't know. If I remember correctly, that's set at 128, which is insanely loud. I mean, you get it to a club and maybe it's not as bad, but I did map the headlights to the number boards, And thank you, George from Soundtraxx, for helping me. It's simple. I guess I forgot how. So yeah, when I press, let's see if I can get it. There we go. Now everything else looks a bit dark, but the light coming out of there, that's more realistic. So even though it's mapped to the headlights, function 26 is mapped to function 0. So when I press 0, the headlights and the number board's lights come on. I would have done it separately, but it didn't. I ended up with so much light bleed, and no matter what I did, coming around the headlights to the number boards, that I just said, all right, forget it. Make them both come on, and I'll let one dim down, which is the number boards, dim them down by at least half, or else there'd be all kinds of light bleeding. I did go ahead, let's see, the truck lights. And step lights. And what I've done on these older ones, I guess this phone I'm not used to, so that's shaky as all get out. See if I can turn this off without it getting too dark. I think my phone had that steady function too, so I'm sorry about the jumping around. On the older locomotives, the truck lights still just a tad bit white. What I do is I use these white LEDs. They come across a bit blue when I video, but I use Kato clear yellow once I'm done, and just barely, I take a very small brush and paint on some of the yellow, and it looks like that truck light might use just a little bit more. Same in the back, so it's not just such a bright white. Now on my newer locomotives, I leave them white. So yeah, the lights are out. There's a little bit of light, but yeah, my headlights, I always want them to look like an actual headlight. I don't want it just to look like, I don't know, like an indicator light that's just on. It's got to look like a light. Anyway, I'll turn the lights back on here. Just want to get what that would look. Let me grab just a reverse light. Go ahead and fire it up, see how it sounds. I'll probably go ahead and change the bell or the rate, or both, I don't know. And I do have it set up for, so when you're going uphill, it will automatically notch up, or down if you're going downhill. And show that just by putting my finger in front of it. It's very smooth running. Here's the dynamic brakes. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's I just wish I could find a B&O that was similar to it. I was gonna get all three and maybe put it on a case or something. Just run them once in a while. These are, like I said, ones I remember growing up. So pretty impressed. I couldn't put a cab light in it. In fact, I did end up painting a couple of wires flat black because the way that they were routed from the factory, you were going to see them no matter what. The speaker ends up being kind of in the cab area, so that's the factory location. It goes right to the roof, so you can't really put a cab light in there unless you put one on both sides. You wouldn't see anything anyway, except one big black hunk of metal. Anyway, overall, I'm happy with it. I was missing a little hook. I was gonna reach out to Walthers, see if they can send me one of the little eyelet type hooks on top. It came loose while I was handling it, because you handle it a lot when you're putting the little LED lights on it and all.